We made it to Friday. Congratulate yourself. How was your week? Mine was packed. Literally packed every day. This is my lightest day, and I only have, I think, 3 or 4 meetings today. So it gives me time to do all the work that was assigned to be in my meetings. So, but before I launch into work, I wanted to share my favorite topic again: Zoom chat and SharePoint file integration. If you haven't heard the first 5 of these videos, please go view them if you have some minutes to spare. And I kind of walk through all the integration points between Zoom chat and Microsoft Sharepoint. One of the things I really wanted to talk about today was a new feature. Well, actually not a new feature. It's a new feature in the Zoom chat world, but not a new feature in the Microsoft world is sensitivity labels. So applying sensitivity labels to files within your organization or enterprise or structure. And so to get their work done, people in your organization collaborate with others both inside and outside the organization. So this means that content no longer stays just behind your firewall, right? It can roam everywhere between places and offices, across devices, apps, and services. So, and when it roams, you surely want to do so in a maybe secure and protected way that meets your organization's business and compliance policies, right? That's the whole point of having information and sensitivity labels. So when I'm talking about labels, I mean labeling documents according to what their purpose is. So you could have public documents that everyone can see, all the way to highly confidential documents that only maybe C-level executives can see. And you want to apply these sensitivity labels to these documents so that only the right permissions and right eyes that have the access to see these files can see these files, right? You don't want to just, here's a bunch of corporate bonuses in a public file and everyone can see it. No, you want to apply some confidentiality labels to that file. I'll give you an example. Zoom chat, my favorite tool, Zoom chat. I'm going to decrease the size of my gigantic head here. And Zoom chat has now been integrated with SharePoint, right? So you've seen me do this demo a number of times where I upload a file into now Zoom chat, and that file now resides actually on Microsoft SharePoint. When you create a new team channel inside of Zoom chat, that channel is actually spun up on SharePoint. So it's its own site within the Zoom ecosystem onto your SharePoint file repository. And then that allows you to leverage the power of Microsoft Compliance and Purview, if you want to, the new name of their compliance tool, and apply whatever you'd like to that file. I gave you examples of e-discovery on that file. I gave you an example of DLP on that file. Today, I'm going to give you an example of sensitivity labels on that file. So I've actually created some sensitivity labels already. As you can imagine, there is one called Zoom sensitivity label. I applied that to my SharePoint and compliance tenants and applied this the sensitivity label to all files and SharePoint sites. And this is really it's really simple. Really, I'll walk you through it. Basically, it's a test Zoom sensitivity label, right? So I actually go through that. I'm going to apply it to files and emails right here. And then what it allowed me to do, I could actually encrypt files, control access to the files and emails that have been labeled. And then I'm going to apply some permissions to those labels. And then I'm actually going to tell you what I'm going to look for in that document. So in this document, I'm going to look for all these U.S. financial information or sensitivity information, such as passport numbers, bank account information, driver's license numbers, Social security numbers, addresses, all that stuff, I now can apply to every single file in Zoom chat, because remember, those files are actually stored in SharePoint. So now let's kind of open it up and find out, give you an example. Let's go back to chat, and let's open this file, testing PII information. We're going to open up that file. As you can imagine, that file contains a bunch of just made up financial information. Remember the sensitivity label criteria that I just showed you said, hey, if it contains any of these things like credit card numbers and or social security numbers, to label this file appropriately. Well, look what got labeled. Zoom, that Zoom label that I just showed you is now been applied to this document I just created in Zoom chat. Two different places. There's also a sensitivity label up here, right? So now as a user, if I have the right permissions, I can say, hey, this was auto assigned to me. I actually will want to take it off. And if you have the permissions, you could actually take that label off. In this example, you probably want to leave this label on, right? You want to say, hey, only the Zoom sensitivity label can be taken off by like an admin or something like that. So now all your files that are inside of Zoom chat, remember now are actually in Microsoft SharePoint. And now everything that you can do in SharePoint and compliance and Purview in Microsoft world, you can apply to the Zoom chat files world. So now you're taking advantage of two premier players in this UCaaS space, as well as file repository, as well as sensitivity, security, information barriers, information policies, DLP, e-discovery. All these things that you get in your E3 and or E5 license or Microsoft 365, E3 or E5, depending on what you have, right? You're going to have advanced security labels and advanced security functions within that architecture. You can now bring that power of that Microsoft security story and file repository story, compliance story into Zoom. So all those things through the power of Microsoft and the SharePoint integration with Zoom and Zoom chat, you can now leverage all those cool functions. Anyway, hope that was helpful. Kind of nerdy, I get it, but hey, sometimes that's part of the process.